Hello everyone, so we will discuss about Mahayana Buddhism. I am Cheryl Makapagal, together with my groupmates, Mayrit Maghanoy, Rosalena Maglasang, Vian Angel Magno, Dion Claire Mercado, Yajwar Metran, and Amanda Mora. Mahayana Buddhism. Do you know it's one of the two major traditions of Buddhism, now practiced in a variety of forms, especially in China, Tibet, Japan, and Korea. The tradition emerged around the 1st century AD and is typically concerned with altruistically oriented spiritual practice as embodied in the ideal of Bodhisattva. And sa susunod na page, makikita nyo kung ano ba yung nilalaman ng report namin. Dahil makikita doon yung table of contents and makikita nyo rin kung sino-sino yung mga nag-report. And that is all for the additional facts of Mahayana Buddhism. Next is we have the table of contents. Sa unang discussion namin ay ipapakilala namin or i-introduce namin sa inyo kung sino nga ba yung founder ng Mahayana Buddhism, which is si Siddhartha Gautama. It will be reported by Rosalena Maglasang and Cheryl Makapagal. Next is we have the sacred text, which is the Sutras, and it will be reported by Yajwar Metran. Next we have the Doctrines, which is the Four Noble Truths, Eightfold Path, the Sixth Perfection to become a Bodhisattva. And it will be reported by Rosalena Maglasang and Cheryl Makapagal. Next is God, Non-theistic. It will be reported by Mayrit Maghanoy. And last but not least for our discussion is the issues. Tibet invasion, engage activism, universality and growth of sects. Reported by Vian Angel Magno and Dion Claire Mercado. At ayun po yung magiging discussion ng whole report namin. I hope you will learn something from our discussion. And now let us continue with the reports.
First, sino nga ba si Siddhartha Gautama? Siya ay mas kilala sa pangalang Buddha na ang ibig sabihin ay enlightened. Isa rin siyang philosopher at religious leader. He founded Buddhism during 6th to 5th centuries. Pero yung teachings niya were mainly embraced by Mahayana Buddhists. Siya ay pinanganak sa Lumbini na mas kilala na ngayong Nepal. At nung time na pinanganak siya, ito yung time ng social and religious transformation sa India. At ang dominant religion nung time na yon ay ang Hinduism. Pero marami ng mga taong nag-question sa validity at authority ng Vedas, pati na rin sa mga practices ng priests nito. And according to legend, isa siyang Hindu prince na tinalukuran ang kanyang posisyon pati na rin ang kayamanan to seek enlightenment as a spiritual ascetic, attain his goals, and in preaching his path to others.
So, merong isang old hermit na pangalang Asita na pumunta dun sa palasyo para makita si Siddhartha. Tapos ngayon, tinanong niya dun sa king and queen kung pwede niya bang hawakan si Siddhartha. Tapos nung hinawakan niya, sinabi niya na magiging great emperor to. Pero kapag binalabas niya siya ng palasyo, magiging spiritual leader siya ng buong mundo. And then, parang nangamba yung king. So, ang ginawa niya, kinulong niya ngayon sa palasyo si Siddhartha. Tinago niya yung mga hindi magagandang bagay, katulad na nga lang nung pag namamatay yung mga rose petals, yung mga gano'n, nagkakasakit yung tao, gano'n, hindi niya pinapakita yung kay Siddhartha. Ngayon, nung nag-16 na siya, pinakasal na siya hanggang sa nagkaanak siya. Tapos ngayon, may bumisitang musician dun sa palasyo. Ang nangyari, kumanta siya ng about sa wonders ng mundo. Tapos ngayon parang na-curious si Siddhartha. So nagtanong siya dun sa prince kung pwede na siyang lumabas. And then sabi ng prince, okay, sige lang. Confident kasi siya na okay na yung anak niya, gano'n, na hindi naman na, parang siya na talaga maging emperor, gano'n, hindi niya siya iibang loob. Tapos nung lumabas siya kasama yung charioteer niya, yung unang encounter niya, naka-encounter siya ng tao na umuubo. Tapos tinanong niya yung charioteer niya na, ano yan? Ba't ganyan? May ganyan. Tapos in-explain nung charioteer na sickness na yon na maaari din magkaroon ng gano'n yung ibang tao. Tapos nung paglakbay uli nila, nakakita naman siya ng old man tsaka ng patay na tao. Tapos ngayon, parang na-depress siya kasi sabi niya, hala, eventually, mamamatay din pala yung mga taong mahal ko. Ganun, magsasuffer lang din. Ngayon, yung pinakalas na nakita niya is yung isang homeless man. Doon siya na-inspire ngayon. Parang sabi kasi ng endless man, naghahanap siya ng spiritual escape. Hindi naman niya kailangan ng material things, ganyan. Tapos ngayon, pumasok sa isip niya na, ay mag-aano din ako. Maghanap ako ng spiritual escape or escape from suffering. Tapos ngayon, sabi niya sa charioteer niya na, pumunta siya sa malayong lugar, tapos sabi niya sa charioteer niya na, bumalik siya sa palasyo, sabihin dun sa asawa niya at anak niya na mahal niya sila, kaya niya ginagawa yun kasi mahal niya sila. Tapos hanggang sa nag-wander siya and study meditation, hanggang sa napag-desisyonan niyang manirahan sa woods kasama yung mga ascetics na 5 ascetics. Tapos, edi nag-fasting siya for 6 years. Hindi siya kumakain. Kung ano lang yung mapuntang seed sa parang lap niya, yun lang yung kinakain niya. And then, parang na-realize niya, he come up with a realization kasi parang yung utak niya, parang slow na and it's clouded. Then, sabi niya na parang, nagkaroon siya ng idea or concept na you will know further more. And then, kumain siya ngayon ng rice milk. At dahil doon, isang bowl ng rice milk. Tapos at dahil doon, lumayo ngayon sa kanya yung mga kasamahan niya. Kasi na-disgust sila kasi akala nila nag-give up na siya. Hanggang sa nakahanap siya ng fig tree. Tapos doon niya na-realize doon siya naging determined na magstay na siya doon para mag-meditate until niya ma-reach yung enlightenment. Tapos, umabot yung 49 days, ngayon na-reach niya yung enlightenment at the age of 35 years old. At naging na siya, the awakened one or Buddha nga. And dahil doon, na-consider niya na, sige, i-share niya yung knowledge niya sa buong mundo. Bumalik siya dun sa 5 ascetics na kakilala niya, yung mga kasamahan niya dati. Tapos ngayon, shinare niya or nagturo siya ng teachings niya, which is yung Dhamma or Dharma, yung the Buddha's teaching. And then, it spread out through sa buong mundo. Ganon. And then, eventually, yung pinakaunang tinuro niya is yung Four Noble Truths. Hanggang so yun nga, kumalat na siya sa buong mundo.
Today, I am Yashwar Metran at ang i-discuss ko naman ngayon ay yung sacred text ng Mahayana Buddhism. So, alam naman natin na iba-ibang religion may kanya-kanyang sacred text tsaka may iba't ibang pinaniniwalaan. Sa Mahayana Buddhism, ang sacred text nila ay tinatawag na sutras. Ang sutras kasi ay meron din sa Hinduism, Buddhism, at sa Jainism. Pero ang i-discuss ko lang is sa Buddhism since we're talking about Mahayana Buddhism. So, ano nga ba yung sutras? The Mahayana Sutras are a broad genre of Buddhist sutra scriptures that are accepted as canonical and as Buddha Vakana or Buddha word in Mahayana Buddhism. So, sutras, yun yung katuruan na ginagamit sa Mahayana Buddhism. At pinaniniwalaan din nila na yung sutras, ito yung real word ng Buddha. And sinasabi din dito na in reality, these texts were just an imaginative, colorful creations written centuries after the Buddha lived. Then ayon naman sa modern Buddhist studies scholars na sutras first began to appear between the 1st century BCE and the 1st century CE. Then in Buddhism naman, sutras also known as suttas. And yun nga, isa siyang canonical scriptures. And maraming naniniwala na yung sutras ay oral teachings of Gautama Buddha. And in origins naman of Mahayana text, malabo yung mga origin. Kasi maraming nag-propose ng mga theories, pero halos lahat ng theories na yun, lack of sufficient evidences. Kaya hindi sila may tuturing na yun yung origin ng Mahayana at saka Mahayana text. Ngayon naman, may maraming mga sutras, iba't ibang sutras sa Mahayana. Then, merong 4 well-known texts na sutras. Ito yung Lotus Sutras, Diamond Sutra, Tathagata Sutra, at Vimalakirti Sutra. So, yung una is yung Lotus Sutra. Lotus Sutra was written by Dokshan of the Tang Dynasty. And it was written in 5th century. And it was originally written in Sanskrit or in Indian language, then translated in later years. It contains 28 chapters, and according to Paul Williams, yung Lotus Sutra is nagko-contain ng final teaching ni Gautama Buddha. Next is yung Diamond Sutra. Sinasabi na ang nagsulat ng Diamond Sutra is si Wang Ji, pero walang patunay na siya yung nagsulat. Then, the exact composition of Diamond Sutra is uncertain, but it was argued that it was made in 2nd and 5th century. Then, yung Diamond Sutra, nagko-contain naman siya ng discourse of Buddha to a senior monk named Subhuti. Then, according to Shigenori Nagamoto, the major goal of the Diamond Sutra is the emancipation of the fundamental ignorance of not knowing how to experience reality as it is. Then, Xing Yun, a Chinese Buddhist monk, describes the 4 main points in the sutra. At yung giving without attachment to self, liberating beings without notion of self and other, living without attachment, and cultivating without attainment. Next is yung Tathagata Sutra. Sinasabi naman dito na lahat ng creature na tao man o hayop is merong Buddha essence sa core natin, which empowers each being to become a Buddha. Na pwedeng maging Buddha lahat ng tao kasi lahat daw tayo merong Buddha essence. Then next naman is yung Vimalakirti Sutra. So Vimalakirti Sutra is a Buddhist text which centers around a lay Buddhist meditator who attained a very high degree of enlightenment, considered by some second only to the Buddhas. So, ayun yung 4 na well-known sutras sa Mahayana Buddhism or Mahayana Sutras. Now, what is unique to Mahayana Sutras is the idea that the term of Bodhisattva is applicable to any person from the moment they intend to become a Buddha, without the requirement of a living Buddha. So, parang kahit sino pwede maging Buddha kahit hindi sila mamuhay na parang Buddha. Kasi yung ibang religion or ibang Buddhism, yung pagiging Buddha, kailangan mamuhay ka muna kung paano mamuhay yung totoong Buddha. So dito, hindi na kailangan yun, kaya parang yun yung kakaiba sa kanila. Now, according to David Ruiz naman, Mahayana Sutras contain several elements beside the promotion of the Bodhisattva ideal, including expanded cosmologies and mythical histories, ideal of Pure Lands and Great, celestial Buddhas and Bodhisattvas, description of powerful new religious practices, new ideas on the nature of Buddha, and a range of new philosophical perspectives. So, yun lang yung mga nakapaloob at mga information about sa sutras or sacred texts ng Mahayana Buddhism. Thank you.
The Doctrines of Mahayana Buddhism. Mahayana Buddhists believe that the right path of a follower will lead to the redemption of all human beings. The Mahayana Buddhism gives us positive ideas of the ultimate issues of life. The Mahayana, or Great Vessel, offers to all beings salvation by faith and love as well as by knowledge.
Una, ang Four Noble Truths sa Doctrines ng Mahayana Buddhism. It explains the basic orientation of Buddhism. They are the truths understood by the worthy ones, those who have attained enlightenment. Ito rin yung sinabi ni Buddha sa kanyang first sermon after ng enlightenment. Para mas maintindihan natin ang konsepto ng Four Noble Truths, sinasabi dito na suffering exists, it has a cause, it has an end, and it has a cause to bring about its end. According to Buddha, the best way to help people attain wisdom and liberation was to point out the way things are. So, kaya niya tinuro ang Four Noble Truths. Naniniwala siya na by seeing the way things really are, mas matututo ang mga tao on how to eliminate their wrong view and perceive their delusion. Dahil sa pamamagitan ng pag-alis ng wrong views at mga dahilan ng wrong delusion ay automatically na masisira ang mga dahilan ng suffering ng isang tao. Kaya naman ang Four Noble Truths ang essence ng first teachings ni Buddha.
The Four Noble Truths. So, ang unang noble truth ay ang truth of suffering or dukkha. Habang naglalakbay si Buddha sa labas ng palasyo, nakakita siya ng tatlong uri ng suffering: old age, sickness, and death. Minumulat lamang tayo ni Buddha na ang suffering kasi, hindi na dapat tayo ma-surprise kung makaranas tayo nito. Kasi part siya ng buhay natin. At kahit sino pa man, matanda o bata, mayaman o mahirap, ay makakaranas nito. Masyado kasi tayong masyado tayong nasanay or masyado nating ginugusto na lagi na lang masaya yung buhay natin. And that is why it is difficult for us to accept that life is a mixture of pleasure and pain. Kahit na hindi na tayo nakakaramdam ng malubhang sakit, hindi tayo nakakaramdam ng pain, hindi pa rin tayo satisfied dun hindi pa rin tayo okay dun. And that is the truth of sufferings. We have to acknowledge and accept the fact that we may encounter difficulties and hardships in life. Because it is inevitable. And it is universal part of a human life. And there's two kinds of suffering. Ang una dito is yung natural sufferings, which is yung wars, disasters, or yung nararanasan natin ngayon, COVID-19. We all suffer in that, generally. Sumunod naman is yung self-inflicted sufferings. Ito yung mga habitual reactions, anxiety, depression, and stress. And, di ba kadalasan tayo nararanasan natin yan ngayon? Dukkha, it refers to something or anything that is temporary. Pati nga din na something that is precious and enjoyable, it is also dukkha. Bakit? Kasi it will eventually end. Pero yung mga other sermons naman ni Buddha is nagpapakita or he also spoke about many forms of happiness. Katulad na lang ng happiness in the form of family life. Pero kasi if we check more closely about dukkha, masyado niya inaapektuhan yung everything about us pati na rin ang good fortune. So, hindi lang dito nagtatapos yung mga teachings ni Buddha. Dahil it also go on para, kumbaga, ipinapakita sa mga susunod kung paano nga ba natin ma-end yung sufferings and mga process and methods kung paano nga ba natin yun ma-end ang sufferings. And dito papasok ngayon ang second noble of truth, which is the origin of suffering or samudaya. Sa araw-araw na buhay natin, nakakaranas tayo ng mga problema. And madali lang natin na-identify yung mga causes nun, di ba? Pero, Buddha claimed that he already found the cause of all sufferings. And that is desire or tanha. Tanha, ito ay term in Pali or ito yung language of Buddhist scripture. Yung tanha, it is generally translated as cravings or thirst. Kasi, di ba, we always crave for something more. We always want something more. Hindi tayo nasasanay or nakokontento sa kung ano meron tayo ngayon. Lagi tayong naghahangad ng much better para sa sarili natin kahit na successful na tayo. And dahil dito, nagkukos yun ng suffering sa atin. And, ang desire or tanha, meron siyang 3 forms. Or tinatawag na 3 roots of evil, 3 poisons, or 3 fire. Ang una dito is yung greed and desire. Represented siya by rooster. Makikita niyo yan sa presentation. And then, ang susunod naman is yung ignorance and delusions. It is represented by a pig. Sumunod naman ay ang anger, hatred, or destructive urges, and it is represented by a snake. So, instead of pursuing or getting what we want, we must change it to something that is positive to us, that has a positive effect on us. Kasi 'di ba, kadalasan sa mga hinihiling natin or sa mga desires natin is negative siya, hindi siya positive. Actually, there is what we call positive desire or chanda. Ito yung example, yung desire for enlightenment, that is classified as a positive desire. Ang issue kasi dito, masyado tayo na-attach for what we desire, and that gets us into trouble. Hindi naman sinasabi dito sa Second Noble of Truth na kailangan nating i-give up yung mga bagay-bagay na gusto natin or mahal natin para makamit natin yung happiness eh. And yung problem lang talaga dito is yung attachment natin for our desires. So, ang kailangan lang natin gawin is to detach yourself in that desires. And for that, we will be able to see or experience the real happiness that we crave.
Ang pangatlo naman ay ang the truth of the cessation of suffering o yung tinatawag ding nirodha. Sinasabi dito na kung makakayanan natin ilayo ang ating mga sarili mula sa pagkauhaw at pagiging ignorante, makakayanan natin mawaksi ang mga paghihirap sa ating buhay. We can put a stop to our suffering. However, it does require work. Kailangan nating maintindihan na tayo rin ang nagkakos ng mga paghihirap sa ating buhay. Kaya naman, we need to train our mind in a new way. Sa pamamagitan nito, mauunawaan natin kung paano talaga ang mundo at matututo tayong palayain ang ating mga sarili mula sa mga maling akala at pagdurusa. At ang panghuli naman ay ang the truth of the path to the cessation of suffering ay tinatawag ding maga. Sinasabi dito that the mind leads us to live in a dualistic way. Pero kung aware tayo at ini-embrace natin ang mga habits natin, pati na rin ang illusion, maaari nating talikuran ang ating expectations about the things should be but instead accept the way they are. Sinasabi ni Buddha na kung matututo tayo sa Four Noble Truths na may bukas na isipan, makakayanan nating ma-handle ang lahat ng paghihirap sa ating buhay ng madali lamang. Kaya nga mayroong common analogy na nagko-compare kay Buddha sa isang magaling na doktor. Kasi 'di ba, kung ikaw ay may sakit, pupunta ka sa doktor at nagtatanong ka, una, anong mali sa'yo? Pangalawa, ano ang nagkakos ng sakit mo? Pangatlo, may lunas ba sa sakit mo? At pang-apat, ano ang lunas dito? At ang path naman na tinutukoy dito to end suffering ay ang tinatawag na the Noble Eightfold Path. Nahahati ito sa tatlong division at ito ay ang wisdom, ethical conduct, and mental discipline. So wisdom, tinutulungan tayo nitong maintindihan ng realidad and see the world as it really is. Nakapaloob dito ang right understanding and right thought. Sunod naman ay ang ethical conduct. Tinutulungan tayo na nitong ma-attain ang mental purification and virtue. Nakapaloob naman dito ang right speech, right actions, and right livelihood. At ang panghuli ay ang mental discipline. Nakakatulong naman ito para ma-develop ang ating true wisdom. Nakapaloob naman dito ang right effort, right mindfulness, and right concentration. Una sa Eightfold Path ay ang right understanding. Sinasabi dito na dapat tinatanggap natin ang mga teachings ni Buddha about life, death, and suffering. Dahil sa pamamagitan nito, malalaman natin ang mga katotohanan na itinuro ni Buddha. Sunod naman ay ang right thought. Sinasabi dito na dapat kumikilos tayo na may wastong intention at hindi nakakasama sa ibang tao. Dapat din may positibong pananaw sa buhay at isipang malaya mula sa pagnanasa, masamang hangarin at kalupitan. Pangatlo naman ay ang right speech. Dito naman sinasabi na dapat iwasan natin ang pagsabi ng mga bagay na makakasakit sa ibang tao o mga bagay na maaaring humantong sa pagiging negatibo. At dapat pawang katotohanan lamang ang ating sinasabi. Pang-apat naman ay ang right action. Sinasabi dito na dapat kontrolin ang ating mga ginagawa at mga paraan ng pamumuhay at dapat gumagawa lamang tayo ng mga moral decision. Panglima naman ay ang right livelihood. Sinasabi dito na dapat mamuhay tayo sa isang paraan na hindi tutol sa mga turo ni Buddha o ng Buddhismo at dapat makakapagpasaya ito sa iyong sarili at sa ibang tao. Dahil maraming trabaho o karera sa buhay ang nakabatay sa pagiging makasarili at kasakiman. At ang pang-anim naman ay ang right effort. Dito naman, nire-require tayong maglagay ng effort or to put effort to living in a good life na makakatulong sa pag-end ng suffering. At dapat, ang pag-iisip natin ay patungo lamang sa mga mabubuting layunin. Pangpito naman ay ang right mindfulness. Dito sinasabi na dapat may awareness tayo tungkol sa ating sarili, pati na rin sa mga taong nakapaligid sa atin. At dapat aware din tayo sa mga nangyayaring paghihirap sa mundo o sa mga taong nakapaligid sa atin. At dapat alam natin kung paano ito matatakasan. Dapat din ay mayroon tayong kamalayan sa ating mga sinasabi at aksyon na ginagawa. At ang panghuli naman ay ang right concentration. Dito nire-require tayong mag-spend ng time para mag-meditate. Dahil makakatulong ito para matrain ang ating isipan kung paano maging kalmado, positibo, at nakakatulong din ito para ma-develop ang ating wisdom.
The 6 paramitas of Mahayana Buddhism. So paramitas, it is generally translated as completeness or perfection. So, ang isang Buddhist, para maging niya ang Buddhahood, kailangan niyang ma-achieve both perfect compassion and perfect understanding. At yung 6 paramitas, it offers a clear method of practicing these perfections. In Buddhism, there are certain virtues such as purification of karma and helping sentient beings while trying to attain the last or final goal of Buddhism, which is the enlightenment. And these virtues are known as the paramitas or the perfections. And according to Buddhist texts and scriptures, ang Mahayana Buddhism meron siyang 6 paramitas and ang Theravada Buddhism ay meron siyang 10 paramitas. Various sutras in Mahayana Buddhism such as Lotus Sutra and the Prajna Paramita Sutras and other various texts mentioned and listed 6 paramitas or perfections. Ito yung generosity, morality, patience, energy, meditation, and lastly is yung wisdom. So yung first paramita natin is perfection of generosity or dana paramita. Ito yung willing kang magbigay ng kahit ano without expecting any reward. Sincere desire to benefit other people. Kahit na time yan, skill, things, material things, or kahit ano pa yan na ibigay mo, instead na maka-feel ka ng regret, is makaka-feel ka pa ng joy sa ginagawa mo. And that is generosity or dana paramita. Next naman, we have perfection of morality or sila paramita. Ito yung pagsunod sa Dhamma or the Buddha's teachings, but not without thinking. Kasi an enlightened being is the one who can respond correctly without actually consulting a list of rules. And it is working on Dhamma into one's everyday life with intelligence and understanding. Living with harmony with each other and not hurting each other and just doing good. And that is the second paramita. In the third one, we have the perfection of patience or Kesanti paramita. It is also translated as tolerance or endurance. And it can be described in 3 perspectives, which is enduring hardship, patience with others, and accepting the truth. And during hardship, ito yung you're able to withstand anything that any hardships or any problems, difficulties that you may encounter. Example na lang is losing someone you love or feeling pain, feeling grief, ganon. And then, next naman, we have patience with others. Yung kahit na anong mistreatment nila sa you're being impatient, you're not fighting to them. And you know how to deal with your anger. You know how to deal with your feelings. Hindi ka basta-basta na lang nag-act. And then we have accepting the truth. Accepting that we are selfish. We are selfish beings. And tayo rin yung nagkakos ng misfortunes natin. And kailangan natin accept na yung mga causes na mangyayari or effects na mangyayari sa mga actions na ginagawa natin. And that is the third perfection of patience. Next we have is the perfection of energy or what we call Virya Paramita. So, Virya can also be translated as zeal, pero it means hero. So, taking care of our own health is part of developing the physical, mental energy. Pero yung mental energy mismo, it is a bigger challenge. And there are actually 3 components for you to be able to develop the mental energy of yourself. First one is developing character and courage. Para ma-develop mo yung character and courage mo, you need to cultivate your courage, confidence, and trust. for you to be able to walk in any path as long as it takes, kahit nagaano pa yan katagal, is matatagalan mo siya or matatapos mo, makakayanan mo, kasi nga you've already developed the character and courage eh. And next naman is we have the developing true spiritual training. Ito yung learning rituals and practicing rituals and knowing the Buddhism teachings para hindi ka na nakadepende sa sangha or sa teacher mo and their teachings. Next naman is by benefiting others. Ito yung perform the practice of action for the sole purpose of benefiting others, like attaining nirvana for the benefits of all sentient beings. Hindi ka lang sa sarili mo hindi lang sa pagbe-benefit ng sarili mo. Mas mais, inuuna mo pa yung ibang tao. And by this, you will develop the mental energy that you're trying to attain or to develop. Next naman, we have the perfection of meditation or dhyana paramita. Alam nyo ba na ang meditation, it is not a treatment. It is actually a discipline that is intended to cultivate the mind. There are actually practice taken to relieve oneself from stress and any behavioral disorders. At isa pa, ang meditation, it is actually the foundation of wisdom. Inner focus and calm are essential to the deep understanding required for Buddhahood. Actually, maganda sa pakiramdam ang meditation or kapag nagme-meditate ka kasi you will feel calm and relaxed. And that is dhyana paramita, perfection of meditation. Lastly, we have the perfection of wisdom or the prajna paramita. So, wisdom, it means awareness of sunyata or emptiness. Or, to be more exact, this is the direct and intimate realization of sunyata or emptiness. Very simply, this is the teachings that all phenomena are without self-essence or independent existence. Pero hindi natin ganun kamadaling maiintindihan ang wisdom with an intellect alone. Kaya naman, maiintindihan natin siya by the practice of the 5 previous paramitas, which is the generosity, morality, patience, energy, and meditation. And that is all for the 6 paramitas or the 6 perfections of Mahayana Buddhism.
God non-theistic. A person who does not believe that there is a God or gods. A person who is not a believer in theism. Atheism is the one who doesn't believe in God existence. There are many different forms of theism. Monotheism, polytheism, pantheism, and pantheism. Deism, autotheism, and value judgment theism. Not-theism is a range of both religious and non-religious attitudes characterized by the absence of espoused belief in gods or gods. Ayun nga, yung sa non-theism, alam nila may Diyos pero hindi sila interesado na maniwala sa Diyos. Parang yun sa atheist, di ba yun, hindi sila naniniwala sa Diyos, wala talagang pinapaniwalaan. Pero pagkakaiba nga lang, yun ang theism, alam nilang may Diyos, pero hindi sila interesado na alalahanin yung Diyos. Ayun, ganun yun. So, ayun nga, iba-iba yung theism, di ba yung binasa ko kanina? Yung sa monotheism, ayun yung naniniwala sila sa mga Diyos-Diyosan, pero isa lang ang pinapaniwalaan nila, isa lang ang kinikilala nila. Ayun. Yung doon naman sa value judgment theism, ayun yung pinagkukumpara nila yung Diyos, tsaka yung Diyosa. Naniniwala sila, pero may pagkukumparang nagaganap. Tapos yung sa iba naman, parang mga Diyos-Diyosan lang, ganon. Ito, pakita ko para mga Diyos-Diyosan lang sila yung sinasamba nila. Ayan yun yung para mga sinasamba nila. Iba, sinasamba lang din nila yung mga kapwa-tao nila. Ayan yun sa picture na pinakita ko. Ito din yung mga nakita ko mga picture sa Google.
Now, let's discuss about the Tibet invasion. Before, The country of Tibet was invaded by Chinese communists noong 1949. That time po, mahigit 1.2 million out of 6 Tibetans have been killed. Over 6,000 monasteries naman po ang nawasak at libu-libong Tibetans ang ikinulong. After 1959, ito na po yung destruction. The destruction of Tibet's culture and oppression of its people was brutal during the 20 years following the uprising. 1.2 million o 1/5 ng populasyon ng bansang ito ay namatay as a result of China's policies. Many more languished in prisons and labor camps at humigit kumulang 6,000 monasteries, temples at iba pang mga cultural at historical buildings ang nawasak. Si Hu Yaobang, General Secretary of the Communist Party, binisita niya ang Tibet. Siya po yung unang senior official na bumisita rito since the invasion. He became alarmed by the extent of the destruction nang makita niya po ito. He called for a series of drastic reforms and for a policy of recuperation. Yung recuperation, according to Wikipedia, politically, ito po ay yung proseso kung saan ang radical na ideya at imahe ay baluktot. Hu Yaobang forced resignation in 1987 was said to have partially resulted from his views on Tibet. Relaxation of China's policies in Tibet came very slowly after 1979 and remains severely limited. Halos kalahating siglo na ang nakakalipas, sinalakay ng hukbo ng China ang Tibet, bringing a sudden and violent end to the Tibet's centuries-old isolation beyond the Himalayas. Tibet's unique brand of Buddhism formed the core of Tibetan culture and society, a radical contrast to the materialist anti-religion dogma of the Chinese communists. Doon po sa pagsiklab ng invasion, si Dalai Lama siya po yung spiritual and temporal leader ng Tibet, and nearly 100,000 Tibetans fled into exile to India. Makalipas ang ilang taon, Tibet's remarkable culture and its inhabitants have been systematically persecuted. Ayon kay Alexander Solzhenitsyn, siya po ay isang Russian novelist, philosopher, historian, short story writer, at political prisoner. He described China's rule in Tibet as more brutal at hindi makatao kaysa sa ibang communist o regime in the world. Despite for 40 years of Chinese occupation and various policies designed to assimilate or signify Tibetans and to destroy their separate national, cultural, and religious identity, dahil sa determinasyon ng mga tao sa Tibet to preserve their heritage at makamit ang kanilang kalayaan, the situation has led to confrontation inside the Tibet at nagkaroon ng malaking Chinese propaganda internationally.
Now, let's talk about the issue about the development of the Buddhism to Zen Buddhism or the Chan Buddhism as the fruit of its encounter to the Taoism. Zen Buddhism is a mixture of Indian Mahayana Buddhism and Taoism, and it started from China, then spread from Korea and Japan, and it became very popular to the West in the mid-20th century. Now, let's move on to the next box, which tackles about that Zen Buddhism have record of Qingde Chungdeng Lu na ginawa noong isang Chinese Buddhist monk named Dao Yun noong 1004 AD, and where it tackles about the authoritative introduction to the nature and origins on how Zen Buddhism functions. And one of its content is the 5 main branches ng mga monks and nuns who belong to a large religious family. And lahat ng mga branches na yon ay pinapractice ang legitimacy by performing Confucian-style ancestor rites para sa kanilang spiritual ancestors or mga patriarchs nila. From the time of Bodhidharma and to the present, lahat ng generation ng Zen lineage have to attain the same spiritual awakening as its predecessors para ma-preserve nila yung Buddha's lamp of wisdom. And the study of this family or the history of this family, they say that the Zen teachers have the legitimate heirs or tagapagmana, and the living representatives ng lahat ng Buddhas and patriarchs. And it also provides the context of belief for various Zen rituals, such as funeral service that was performed by a Zen priest. Now, let's talk about the history of the Zen Buddhism. Zen Buddhism was brought to China by the Indian monk named Bodhidharma in the 6th century Common Era, and it was called Chan in China. And Zen Golden Age began with the 6th patriarch Huineng 638 to 713 and ended with the persecution of Buddhism in China in the middle of the 9th century Common Era. And lahat ng iniisip natin ngayon na great Zen masters ay galing dito sa period na to. And Zen Buddhism was survive ng Zen Buddhism yung persecution, though it was never the same in China. Nagbago siya. And then, in the 7th century, the Zen spread to Korea and to Japan in the 12th century Common Era. And dahil sa isang Japanese scholar named Daisetsu Teitaru Suzuki, yung Zen, it was popularized in the West noong 1870 to 1966, although it was found in the West before that. The essence of Zen is attempting to understand the meaning of life directly without being misled or hindi sila nakakuha ng wrong idea by logical thought or language. And Zen techniques are compatible with other faiths and are often used. And for example, tayong mga Christian, we are seeking a mystical understanding of faith, and yun yung ganun din ginagawa nila. Then next is the Zen often seems paradoxical, and itong phrase na to means that it requires an intense discipline which they practice properly na maglilid sa total spontaneity and ultimate freedom. And itong natural spontaneity na to, hindi dapat siya ma-confuse with their impulsiveness. The essence of Zen Buddhism is that all human beings are Buddha, and all they have to do is to discover the truth for themselves. Because Zen ay dinadala tayo na ito by looking inside us para sa enlightenment. Because we don't have to search outside ourselves for the answers. We can find the answers in the same place that we found the questions. So which is our inside. And the first step to control our minds is through meditation and other techniques that involves our mind and body.